Pensée, hello, bonjour, et bonjour. Good day, everyone who is tuning in from across Turtle Island. My name is Kira Delarond, and I will be your host today for the Imagine a Canada's National Celebration of 2022. I would like to first by introducing myself. So as I mentioned, my name is Kira Delarond. I am a recent graduate from Red River College Polytechnic in the Indigenous School of Education. I currently have a diploma in community development and economics. Also, I'm currently the chairperson of the Manitoba Métis Federation's Provincial Youth Advisory Committee. I hold the voice and the concerns for the youth, and I bring them back to my government. I am from Duck Bay, Manitoba. My spirit name is Makaremang Ekwe, which translates to the Black Loon Woman. I'm very honored to be with you all here today and to hear everything you all have to share on what a reconciled Canada looks like to you. The Imagine a Canada's national celebration is being broadcasted in English and French over the National Truth Center for Truth and Reconciliation's NCTR YouTube page. If you would like to watch the program, please share the YouTube links, as the entire event will be available after the conclusion of today's live broadcasting. Imagine a Canada was first launched by the National Centre of Truth and Reconciliation in 2016, with the aim of sharing youth visions of a reconciled Canada. Since then, the Centre has had thousands of participants and received hundreds of submissions, which have expressed a diversity of ideas, all with the same goal of bringing us together, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, under the banner of cooperation and support of a shared vision for a better future. Over the years, the Centre has learned to and grown from the program itself, as well as the educators, parents, guardians, survivors, and knowledge keepers, and from the youth themselves. Last year, the NCTR relaunched Imagine a Canada with an art-only stream for youth in kindergarten to grade 5, and a project stream for youth in grade 6 to 12, and CEGET. During this year's national celebration, the Centre is honoring 10 submissions of art-only stream and 15 submissions from the Reconciliation Project stream. In 2021, the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation received art pieces from drawings and paintings, songs, essays, photographs, posters, and PowerPoints, just to name a few types of the submissions. The Centre also received project plans that detailed a bevy of creative ideas from public art installations, such as a full-scale mural, educational assemblies, cultural workshops, medicinal and traditional Indigenous gardens, and so much more. It is immensely inspiring for the selection committee and the NCTR staff to look through all of the 2021 submissions, given the exceptional, thorough, and emotion thought out behind them. Over the course of the next few hours, the program will consist of opening remarks, a keynote from one of the good friends of the Centre, Kevin Lamoureux, and of course, we will hear from the youth themselves about their projects and their visions of reconciliation. Before I invite Elder Edna to open the national celebration in a good way, I would first like to acknowledge that the land we are broadcasting from and all of the territories that our audiences are joining us. We stand on Treaty 1 territory, the ancestral territories of the Anishinaabe and Inuak. These lands are also a part of the unceded territories of the Dakota and the homelands of the Red River Métis. We stand committed to reflecting on the continued legacy of the original people of this province, including the Isinawak, Deniso, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and Nakota. We would like to honor our survivors, elders, and knowledge keepers, and acknowledge all of the nations, the treaty territories, and unceded territories on which we live, play, and conduct our daily businesses. From wherever you are joining us today, welcome. And I just want to give, before I invite Elder Edna to the stage here, I do at times have an accent. I apologize if any names are mispronounced today. I will try my absolute best to honor you all in your names. I would now like to welcome Elder Edna to provide an opening prayer.
Yes, good morning. Tungahugitti. welcome on this bright and sunny morning that we've been given a new day, a new dawn after hopefully everyone's had a beautiful rest and wake to an inspiring sunny day. I'd like to say a short prayer for our youth. We've all heard it said that the youth are our future leaders, and it is in their hands and their great minds that we will entrust the work of reconciliation to continue. You can also pray in your own way if you choose to. Ublumitukyakonga, ublok tupak titang migapta, nakuyuming. Hinityakuta, ay mabitching ni hinigzakakapta. Huyayugun. Tupak tilita ublumihakan naktumut, hamanihakan naktumi, lunapching ni. Turtle Island migtayo vakto. Kablunatu dilihimayaw yak Canada mig. Humid kalwak tiluta. Inulgamid, inuhat. Inang ningok takpadliya tilugin. Ikayok lugin, nayok lugin. Ayok lugin. Uvahudli inang niyo yugut. Angayok kango yugut. Atarat tiyango yugut. Ananat tiyango yugut. Pimmakik tumig. Inungui yakyakakapta nutakaptingning. Ayok lutalo, ikayok lutalo. Apkuat inuhat. Ivunikavut. Ivunikoy niyang matakakubo inang ningomi. Inulgamid. Ilittorevallia kublugin. Ilattopallia kublugin. Taima kinipayutut. Wakititut. Avatimingnit. Kawivallia lutin. Upigilugit. Ilihautjawit. Ilinmingnut. Timmarilugit. Upperilugidlo. Taimalo. Anangayakimaittimik. Inurallilluti. Inungorterlutin. Ayok tauniakkut. Hivunipta angayok kaapta saapkuat. Nunamitung naatun. Ayok tigilugin. Avatek pullu taima. Ikayong niakkut. Inuhaning. Tautu makublugin. Ihumakakayok tillugin. Apkutik kamingnik. Hivunik kamingnik. Kuya yugut ublume. Nayok lugit. Ikayok pagligut. Sigumiak ligut. Taima. Kuya bunga. Kuya namig. Hi. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Edna, for the opening prayer to start this celebration off in a good way. Next, I would like to invite the Executive Director for the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, Stephanie Scott, to offer remarks. Prior to joining the center, Stephanie worked with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, of Canada, as a manager of statements gathering, where she was responsible for gathering and documenting of residential school survivors' experience. In addition to this role with the TRC, Stephanie received the Executive Assistant to the Chair, the Honorable Murray Sinclair, where she learned valuable leadership skills. Prior to her work with the Truth Commission, Stephanie enjoyed a long and successful career operating her own production business, where she still oversees part-time. Through her past work and current work with residential school survivors, Stephanie's experiences firsthand their strength, courage, and resilience as they overcome many challenges and pass these teachings on to the next generation. Please welcome Stephanie Scott.
Oh, bonjour. My name is Stephanie Scott, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. Imagine a Canada asks Canadian youth from kindergarten to grade 12 and SAGEP one important question. What does a reconciled Canada look like? Over the last 6 years, the NCTR has received hundreds of submissions from schools all across Canada, with thousands of students participating in individual, group, and school projects. The diversity and creativity of ideas expressed by youth who have sought to answer this question demonstrates how much has changed since the program's inception in 2016. Imagine a Canada is a program that is near and dear to my heart. I've had the privilege to see and hear the works and words of hundreds of youth, from our youngest leaders who are just starting out on their learning journey to older youth who have taken their knowledge and education and have applied it. In 2021, the NCTR relaunched Imagine a Canada after taking the perspectives and ideas of parents and guardians, educators, survivors, and youth about the program into account, with hopes this new format will better complement the evolving landscape and work being done in the classroom. This year, we are excited to recognize the wonderful artistic submissions we've received. We are also proud to be able to fund a handful of projects that take aim at advancing reconciliation in schools and communities. It's thanks to the financial support of institutions like CC UNESCO and IG Wealth Management that we are able to extend the reach of Imagine a Canada and support youth enacting change guided by their passions and education. As the former manager of statement gathering at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, it was my duty and honor to listen to residential school survivors, many of whom expressed a wish for their stories and experiences to be used to educate our future leaders about the painful history of the residential school system in Canada. When classrooms engage with survivors, elders, and knowledge keepers, it is a benefit to all students. We must recognize that we have a part to play in shaping our country's future, and it's up to each and every one of us to advance reconciliation, whether it's in our classrooms, homes, workplaces, or communities. Take inspiration from the youth, whose projects were selected for honoring in this year's Imagine a Canada's program, and take the time to listen to survivors, learn about Indigenous cultures and history, and reflect on how you can make our country a better place, just as they have done. I would like to congratulate all the youth involved in the program for their outstanding work, as well as recognize the amazing achievements accomplished thus far. Thank you for the time and commitment you've made to your projects, and I cannot wait to see the end result. Thank you to all who have guided and supported these amazing youth along their journey. And thank you to everyone who participated in Imagine a Canada and who shared their visions of what a just, respectful, and reconciling Canada can look like if we applied ourselves, just as these outstanding youth have done. Miigwech, thank you, merci.
Thank you, Stephanie Scott, for those opening remarks. I would now like to invite the Honorable Heather Stephenson, Premier of Manitoba, to offer remarks. An investment advisor, Premier Stephenson earned her Bachelor of Arts from the University of Western Ontario before completing her financial education at the Canadian Securities Institute. She also worked as an advisor in the offices of the Prime Minister, the Federal Minister of Agriculture, and the Provincial Minister of Education. She and her husband Jason have 2 children. The Honorable Heather Stephenson was elected as MLA for the electoral district of the Tuxedo in Winnipeg in the year 2000 and was re-elected in 2003, 2007, 2011, 2016, and 2019. I would now like to welcome the Honorable Heather Stephenson.
As Premier of Manitoba, it is my honor to provide opening remarks on this very special occasion. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Elder Edna Aliyah for the beautiful opening prayer. I would like to give my respects to the elders and the youth in attendance today, as well as visiting chiefs, members of Parliament, and members of the Legislative Assembly. I want to acknowledge that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinabeg, Anishinaabe, Dakota-Oete, Dene-Sulene, and Nihilwek nations. We acknowledge that Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge that northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Manitoba is proud to be the province in which the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation is located. The Centre offers a number of programs and initiatives that continue to help Manitobans deepen their understanding of how we can collectively move forward together. Imagine a Canada is one of these programs. It is unique and fulfills an important role in the ongoing process of reconciliation in our country. It encourages both hope and creativity amongst youth. As adults, it is easy for us to get lost in the details of the big picture. It is important for all of us to be reminded on occasion of what we are working towards, a truly reconciled Canada. On behalf of the Government of Manitoba, I would like to congratulate all participants in the program. I am particularly proud to congratulate participants from 3 Manitoba schools being honored today, along with the 22 students who supported these project plans. Congratulations again to all participants in the 2021-22 Imagine a Canada program. I wish you all a positive and meaningful celebration, and I hope everyone has an amazing and memorable summer.
Thank you, Premier Stephenson, for those opening remarks. I would now like to welcome Damon Murchison, President and CEO of Investors Group Wealth Management, to speak. After earning a bachelor's degree in political science and economics and an MBA from Western University, Damon began his career as an advisor. He moved on to roles in asset management, wealth management, and insurance. He joined IGM in 2014 with Mackenzie Investment before transitioning to IG Wealth Management last year. Damon has 25 years of financial service leadership experience and previously held progressively senior positions, including head of sales for retail markets at Manulife Financial and head of Alliance National Sales at Fidelity Investments. I'd now like to welcome Damon to the stage. Damon, I believe you may be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Welcome.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we know this event is live. Good morning, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here today, not only as we honor National Indigenous History Month, but to also join in the celebration of these amazing students and their involvement in the Imagine a Canada program. Congratulations to each and every one of you. What you have done is truly inspirational, and thank you to the parents, teachers, and mentors for helping these extraordinary young people along the way. I would also like to thank the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation for their leadership and guidance and for providing IG Wealth Management with the opportunity to be part of such a special initiative. The Imagine a Canada program put out a call to all students to create a piece of work that expressed their vision of what a reconciled Canada looks and feels like. And thank you to all of you for answering that call. Your bravery and innovation are evident in the work that is being recognized today. These projects are imaginative, heartfelt, and most importantly, showcase your unique vision of what a reconciled Canada means to you. I commend you all for your dedication as you continue to learn through workshops and showcases. It is wonderful to learn of the progress that you've made in sharing your visions with all your communities. IG Wealth Management, like you, envisions a reconciled Canada, and we're working towards this in our own way. In 2020, we launched the IG Empower Your Tomorrow Indigenous Commitment, which supports building the financial confidence of Indigenous peoples. We have pledged $5 million over 5 years through community initiatives to support this commitment. With this initiative, we are working with our partners, Prosper Canada, and our longstanding partner, the Downey Winjack Fund, to help develop support programs and spread awareness for Indigenous history and our journey of reconciliation. IG recognizes that we all play a role in helping create a more equitable and tolerant society, one that learns from the past in order to create a better future for us all. It's the only way that we can truly build a reconciled Canada for all. So I'd like to thank the young people here today for being a vital part of that vision and helping us build a better Canada. Once again, congratulations to Imagine a Canada and to everyone here today for your incredible achievements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Damon, for those remarks. And the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation thanks IG Wealth Management for their continuing financial support of the Imagine a Canada program. Now, I would like to invite one of the NCTC survivors, Elder Edna, to talk about the importance of reconciliation and supporting youth in their endeavors in education. Edna Alie was called Hit, and I apologize again with my pronunciation, Hatilirmet by her grandmother, meaning a person from thin ice, because she was born on a fishing lake in the fall and is the reason why she loves ice fishing in the fall and in the spring. A teacher by profession, Elder Edna is an Inuit language and cultural advocate. She has lived and breathed her culture in an urban setting and shares her knowledge through presentations in educational institutes and elementary schools. Teaching Inuktitut, the dialect of the Cooper Inuit of the Kitumewe, is another passion to train adults, language teachers, staff in preschools, daycare programs, educators, and parents of small children. After 5 years as commissioner of Nunavut, Edna returned to her home community where she is heavily involved in volunteer work, education, language, and cultural preservation. Currently residing in Edmonton, Edna has been actively involved in a number of Indigenous advocacy circles as the voice of the Inuit. I'd like to now welcome Elder Edna back to the stage. And it looks as though Elder Edna was having some technical issues. So I would like to acknowledge the remarks that she was going to bring forward to our youth here today. And if she joins back in on the call, I will obviously invite them back to give those remarks. But I would now like to welcome Kevin Lamoureux to give the keynote address on education and reconciliation. Kevin Lamoureux has served as a facility member at the University of Winnipeg and at the University of Manitoba, and is a well-known national public speaker. He has served as co-chair to the Manitoba Provincial Task Force on Educational Outcomes for Children in Care, scholar in residence for several school divisions, and an educational consultant throughout Manitoba and across Canada. Kevin is an award-winning scholar with an impressive publication and research grant record, and has consulted for governments, organizations, and institutes across Canada. His publication with Dr. Jennifer Katz, Ensouling Our Schools, is being used by educators across Canada working to create inclusive spaces for all students. He has been seen on TV, in documentaries, in print, and in the media. More than anything, Kevin is committed to reconciliation and contributing to an even better Canada for all children to grow up within. I'd now like to welcome Kevin Lamoureux. We just need one more moment here before we have our keynote speaker give their address. So I would just like to once again thank all of you for participating here today and for engaging with youth. As the youth chair for the Manitoba Métis Federation, My daily passion and goal is to ensure that youth voices are heard and seen at all tables. It is very inspiring for me to see we have youth as young as kindergartners participating in today's event. I am very thankful and I'm very excited to see all the rest of the presentations here today. Now, Kevin Lamoureux.
Hi, Kyra. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Oh, that's wonderful. What an excellent job you're doing. And what an honor it is for me to be able to be a part of this event. Sincerely, I'm so excited to be able to speak alongside the folks who have spoken. Elder Edna, who offered us beautiful words to get us started in a good way. The Premier of Manitoba was here. That's awesome. Representatives from IG Wells, my dear friend Stephanie. I also know, and we need to acknowledge this, that behind the scenes, there are so many people that are working so hard to make this a success. I know that the folks at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation have such a passion and such a dedication for this work. I know that they're just sweating, hoping that everything goes smoothly for all of you to be properly honored. And I want to thank them for all the time and energy and heart that they put into their work. Okay? I'm so proud of the young people who are being celebrated here. That may sound insincere. You don't know who I am. We've never laid eyes on each other, but I am. I'm genuinely proud from the bottom of my heart for the good work that you have been able to be a part of and the good work that you're going to continue to do. Several years ago, before the pandemic, I was in charge of Imagine a Canada. I was the one that was leading Imagine a Canada across the country on behalf of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. And in that role, being the one that was helping guide the project, I was able to see all the hundreds of submissions that came in, not just that year, but all the years prior, from students just like yourself from across the country, from coast to the farthest reaches of our beautiful land. And I have to tell you, I was always humbled, completely blown away by the quality of the work that students would produce and share with us. I know as a fact that if you're here being celebrated today, it's because your work was outstanding. I hope that you know that. I hope that your parents that may be watching with you know this. I hope your teachers know this, that what you've done is very, very special. Okay? When you think about what it is that you were able to do and share with the NCTR community, and indeed with survivors across the country, I hope you stand up a little bit straighter. I hope that you stand with pride. And I hope that you allow yourself a moment to feel good about what you were able to accomplish, because you should. It's very, very special. And that's the reason why so much time is being put into honoring you appropriately, because you deserve it. Now, I'm somebody that believes that young people have an incredible ability to create change. I know that can be frustrating to hear sometimes. Sometimes when adults say things like that, it sort of implies that we're waiting for kids to take care of all of our messes that we created. Nothing we can do, but we're going to leave it for young people to take care of. And I suppose if I'm honest with myself, sometimes that's just true. I suppose in some cases it's very, very difficult for adults to make changes, to step away from that which has been most familiar, that which has always been the way that we do things, and adopt something totally new. Maybe approach a different type of relationship with one another here in Canada, to maybe work for a different kind of future than the one that we were born into. Very difficult for adults sometimes. But I absolutely do believe that young people have an incredible ability to create change. I'm not trying to pawn all the work off onto you. It's just simply to acknowledge that whenever I see young people doing the kind of work that you're doing, sharing their voices, making their voices heard, contributing to a better country, it fills me with hope. Okay? And I think that sometimes hope is one of the greatest gifts that we can give one another. Sometimes I think that hope is something that is a treasure that we can pass along to one another. And to know it's very easy sometimes to not feel hopeful. Hey, like many of you over the last couple of years, as I've watched more and more hidden, unmarked, possibly lost graves being discovered behind schools across the country. Like many of you, my heart breaks whenever I hear one of those news stories. Whenever we have another one of those kind of discoveries, I feel a sadness. And that sadness can stay with me from one day to the next in this work. But I want to go back to what I said about young people and the incredible capacity that you have to create change. When I see events like this and I see the good work that people like you are doing, I'm restored with hope. I once again realize that we can accomplish reconciliation, that we will find a way to move forward past all of these hurts and create a space where each and every one of us are able to thrive, okay? Where each and every one of us are able to enjoy the benefits of what it means to be Canadian. So that here on this beautiful land that we share, that was made available to us through treaty making, that here we are able to enjoy a fullness in life. What my ancestors in my grandparents' tongue would refer to as minopamatsuan, to live in a good way. Now, before I go too much further, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of reconciliation. I want to share with you some of my thoughts about reconciliation, because this can be one of those words that's really, really difficult to understand. There may be as many definitions of reconciliation as there are people trying to define it. Okay? I also have to acknowledge that I have many brothers and sisters, many community members. There are many Indigenous people in Canada today who reject that word, reconciliation. There are many people in our communities who don't believe that reconciliation is possible. And I want to honor that hurt. I want to acknowledge that it's very difficult to think about reconciliation when we continue to watch injustices in the world around us. When we watch people who have harmed Indigenous people, including women and girls, walk free, it's hard to think about reconciliation. When we watch Indigenous people who are trying to get one step ahead in life through work or through school pulled backwards, it's hard to think about reconciliation. It's hard to think about that word when we continue to find the unmarked missing graves of our children behind schools. I understand that pain. And yet I continue to feel hopeful. I continue to enjoy this word reconciliation. I continue to find hope in this word. So I should take a couple of minutes to explain why. Two things I want to say about this word for you folks. The first thing is that I truly believe that we wouldn't be talking about reconciliation at all. I wouldn't be doing this presentation. We wouldn't have Imagine a Canada. Those graves would have never been found. Many of them would have never been found if it hadn't been for the courage and the strength and the dignity of residential school survivors. I believe that reconciliation is a concept that was given to us by survivors. And it's incredible to me to think about the courage that it would have taken for people who are survivors and were survivors to share those stories. Stories that for many of them had never been told throughout their lives. Sometimes when we go through hardship, as human beings, sometimes when we experience things that we shouldn't have to experience, and I bet many of you can relate to the experience of overcoming hardship. But when we go through those very, very difficult moments, sometimes the best that we can do is take those memories and lock them up in a box, wrap them in chains, and push them as far to the back of our minds as we possibly can. It's a survival technique. We try not to look at those memories. We try not to acknowledge that they're there. We try our best to live as if they don't exist. And yet survivors, in a spirit of courage and dignity and strength, opened up those boxes and shared those stories with us so that we could have this opportunity. Now, I'm not saying that they necessarily did it for us. I'm not saying that survivors owe us anything at all, but it's simply to acknowledge that we wouldn't be talking about reconciliation if it wasn't for them. Now, as an Indigenous person, and perhaps for any of you on the call that identify as Indigenous, I feel very proud when I think about that, okay? That I come from people like that. That I come from people who, as children, may have experienced some of the very worst, some of the darkest horrors that Canada's been responsible for, and yet they grew to be the kind of people that could extend their hand in friendship, in kindness, back to that very same nation, to me is incredible. What that tells me is that, yes, there are barriers, there are challenges. Of course, there are things acting against the vibrancy of our young people. There are intergenerational traumas and hurts, to be sure. But there is also intergenerational strength and intergenerational hope. We didn't just receive negativity from our ancestors, we also inherited the ability to survive with courage. It makes me feel proud. And I would want every single one of you to feel proud of who you are. I would want every single one of you to be able to look into a mirror and love who you see and what you see. Hey? To be proud of the people you come from. I think a big part of the work of reconciliation is creating a country where that kind of experience is possible for all young people. Hey? To be proud of the people you come from and to love who you are and what you are. Mano Pamatsuman, to live in a good way. So that's the first thing I believe to be true. This is a gift given to us by survivors. We wouldn't have it if it wasn't for them. Now, the second thing that I believe to be true about this word is a little bit more difficult to understand, so I'm going to beg you to stay with me. I don't think that reconciliation is something that we are doing out of pity for Indigenous folk. I don't think this is something that we're doing because we feel sorry for Indigenous communities. I don't think that's accurate at all. In fact, I kind of believe the opposite to be true. I think that reconciliation is a gift that was given to us so that we, you and I, could be a part of healing our country. So what do I mean by that? Healing our country. What am I saying? Am I saying that Canada is sick? Am I saying that Canada is not a good place? Am I being anti-Canadian? Absolutely not. And I don't want to be misunderstood in this regard. Let me share a little bit of personal background so you know where I'm coming from in this case. I'm of mixed ancestry. When I was a kid, I was very ashamed of that. Growing up in the north end of Winnipeg in the 1980s, if you were what we referred to then as a half-breed, and we certainly don't use that language anymore, well, all that meant was that you had to fight with everybody growing up. Today, I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be able to say to you that I have a father who is Anishinaabe from Treaty 2. My grandparents, Mary and E.G., were good people. There's actually a street here in Winnipeg named after my grandparents for the work they tried to do for community. Very proud of that. My mother's family are Ukrainian, from Ukraine. And they fled Ukraine after World War I, long time ago, when my grandma was a very, very small child, to escape the Soviet Union. I'm told that if they hadn't escaped, if they had not fled, they would have faced persecution and maybe even death at the hands of the Soviet Union. This was before a very horrible time in Ukrainian history referred to as Holodomor, when the good people of Ukraine were starved by the Soviet Union. And so my family literally had the opportunity to survive and exist because of Canada. Are you kidding me? I'll never be able to say enough good regarding what Canada did for my Ukrainian ancestors. When I stand up to sing the national anthem, which I do with pride, usually I'm at a Jets game watching them about to beat up on whoever they're beating up on. But when I stand up to sing the national anthem, one of the things that I'm standing on guard for is my sense of gratitude for what Canada did for my family. I bet a lot of you can relate to that. I bet many of you can relate to having a family, coming from a family that Canada was kind to, that Canada was able to provide opportunities for. Indeed, many of us are being able to enjoy a higher standard of living here than most people on the planet could ever even imagine. But as beautiful as this country is, and as beautiful as this country has been for so many people, I don't think that Canada has lived up to its full potential. I don't think Canada has become everything that it possibly could become. And maybe we never will. Maybe we never will become the country that we were meant to be, for so long as there are people living here within our borders, within this beautiful land, under third world conditions. We could probably do better than that, right? For so long as there are people living within our borders under conditions that other people flee countries to escape from, we could probably do better than that, right? Hey, for so long as we're a country where there are communities without clean drinking water, for Pete's sakes, I know we can do better than that. And so I truly believe that reconciliation is about helping Canada to be its best self, to help Canada be the best version of itself, for us to leave behind a better country for us having been here. And that's where you come in. And I believe that young people have an incredible ability to create change. As I've already said, you're joining a community of young people who have lent their voices, who have made their voices heard, so that we could have moments like this. And I want to tell you a story of a couple of these situations where young people have been able to create incredible change. Just to give you an idea of the kind of community that you're now a part of, a community of young people who have the ability to do so much good. I'm going to start with a story of 7 young people from Quebec. This is the story of the journey of Nishiyu. Now, I don't know how many people have heard this story before, but perhaps I'm the first one that gets to tell you about this. And if that's the case, I'm so happy. I'm so pleased to be able to share this story with you. 7 young people, 7 teenagers, young people no older than some of you. Back in 2013, I know this is going back a long time ago, almost 9 years ago, but these 7 teenagers made an announcement that they wanted to prove to the rest of the world that the Cree of northern Quebec were not sellouts. Now, what does that mean? These were their words. They wanted to prove that the young people continued to believe in the traditional values of their community. They wanted the world to know that young people from northern Quebec wanted to keep their language and keep their traditions alive. That they wanted to show that Indigenous young people stand for something. They stand for Mother Earth. They stand for principles of justice. They stand for what is right. And so they made an announcement that they were going to march from their home community in northern Quebec all the way to Ottawa, Ontario, to our nation's capital. Now, that was a journey of 1,600 kilometers that they would have had to walk, 1,600 kilometers. Now, they didn't do this in a silly way. They didn't do this in a dangerous way. They approached people like your teachers, perhaps your parents, trusted adults in their community. And they approached them with tobacco and asked if they would walk with them. And as part of this journey, share with the kids, the young people, the traditional songs, the traditional stories, to show them how to live in a good way while walking across this land. And to the credit of the older folks in that community, they agreed and they started their journey. And when they started, it looked exactly like this. And they had 1,600 kilometers to march, and it was minus 55 outside the morning that they left. Now, as they began to make their way across the Quebec countryside, exactly as you see here in this picture, eventually they were able to make it after many, many, many hours of very difficult walking under very, very difficult conditions that were harsh and dangerous. They would eventually make it into small towns and communities in northern Quebec. And you can imagine, if a bunch of young people showed up in your community out of the blue, you would say, "What the heck? What are you doing here?" And the 7 teenagers shared their journey. Nishiyu is a word, I'm told, that translates roughly into humanity. It's a journey of humanity, reclaiming their identity. And the adults and the people in these small communities were so inspired by what these young people were doing, this act of courage, this act of strength, that many of them decided to take time off work to leave behind whatever it was that they were doing and take the time, make the time to walk with these kids. And so this journey, which began to stretch across the Quebec countryside, as they went, began to look more and more like this as more and more people became a part of it. And I'd ask you to imagine how beautiful it must have sounded under those winter skies to hear a procession of people singing the traditional songs, hey? Gathering at nighttime to hear traditional stories around the fire. To be a part of a community like this, people began to put up signs in their communities to welcome the young people, knowing that they were going to be showing up. It was around this time that people like me in other parts of Manitoba or other parts of the country, places like Manitoba, so far away, began to hear about these stories on social media. And when I heard about this story, I got excited because, again, I get so much hope from the work of young people, from the voice of young people. And I began to pay attention. I began to track their journey across the countryside. And as the story goes, they made it to one community. There were people waiting for them, knowing that they were going to arrive. And as the 7 original boys showed up in that community, somebody pulled one of them aside, had been waiting for him. And he said, "I have to tell you something very difficult. But your brother back home died by suicide." And this was the message that was waiting for one of these boys when he made it to one of these towns. And when I heard about that, my heart broke. Okay? I try to focus on the positive, but I felt sadness in that moment. I thought, isn't it always that way for so many of our young people? Isn't it always like that when our young people try to get one step ahead, it feels like something pulls them 2 steps backwards? He's going to have to go home. He's going to miss the end of this walk. I was heartbroken. And you know what this boy did? Well, I was sitting in Manitoba feeling sorry for him. You know what this boy did? I imagine he wiped the tears away from his eyes and he put his backpack back on and he kept walking. And when it came time to weep and to cry and to grieve the loss of his brother, everybody in that community cried with him. And when it came time to sing a song of hope and healing, everybody in that journey sang with him. And when he finally made it to Ottawa, hey, along with the original 7, along with everybody that had joined in on that journey, when they finally made it to Ottawa, this was the crowd that was waiting for them. Okay? This is why I believe that young people have an incredible ability to create change. This is what I think of when I think about the work that you're doing. I think about people all over the country being inspired by your voice. Okay? I'll share just one more story with you. This is a story about a young person named Shannon Kustachin. This is a picture of her. Shannon came from a small community in Ontario called Ottawapiskat. Now, unfortunately, Ottawapiskat became famous back in the early 2000s for unfortunate reasons. There were photos coming out of that community that showed just how horribly treated that community was, the kind of conditions that people were forced to live under in that community through no fault of their own. And Shannon was growing up in that community. And she went to a school, unfortunately, that was located on a toxic dump. I wish I was lying about that, but I'm not. And as a young person, she was around 13 or 14 at the time. She was a very, very young person, very, very young child. She began to film with her device and make stories on her device about what it was like to go to school in Ottawapiskat. And she began to share these videos on social media, I imagine YouTube and other places, where she told the story of what it was like to go to school in her First Nations community. Hey? A school that had mold on the walls, a school where the windows didn't properly fit the frame so that there was cold air coming in the winter. And she shared her vision, her dream of every kid in Canada being able to go to a safe and comfy school. Now, she did such a wonderful job sharing these stories, and her voice was so powerful and her stories so compelling that people began to pay attention. And I can't help but imagine people from across Canada who maybe had never seen a community like Ottawapiskat before saying things like, This can't be real. There's no way that schools in Canada look like this. We can do better than this. There's no way that this is the way that kids go to school in Canada. But as she continued to make videos, it became obvious that this was the truth. This was the kind of conditions that kids were trying to learn under. She started to get attention. People started to invite her to come and speak at conferences. Imagine being exactly as old as many of you are now, being asked to speak at a conference in front of hundreds of people. There was even an article in Canadian Geographic about her. Her school had been getting ready. They had been saving their money for a graduation trip. They were going to go to Niagara Falls, I'm told. But because Shannon's work was getting so much attention, they paid to send her to Ottawa instead, to go and meet with their MP, to talk about her dream for a safe and comfy school. And I imagine that when she was in Ottawa, the MP was polite, but maybe a little bit condescending. We'll look into this. Thank you very much for your time. And Shannon, to her credit, said very respectfully, thank you, but that's not good enough. And she went outside from the Parliament that day and spoke in front of a crowd of people, hundreds of people that had gathered there, to make herself heard, that Canada can do better for its kids, that every kid can and should be allowed to go to a safe and comfy school. Now, she decided that she wanted to become a lawyer, to fight the system from within. That was her vision. And she left home to go to school to pursue that dream. And unfortunately, when she was in the city, she died in a car accident at the age of 16. But her dream has been recognized unanimously by all levels of government, was signed unanimously by all major federal parties as being a commitment for Canada. We still haven't lived up to Shannon's dream, but it's a benchmark, it's a vision, it's a reminder that we can and should do better. It's the voice of young people speaking for 2 generations to come about our obligation to do better for one another. As a side note here, I love comic books. I'm a comic book guy. And a comic book company reached out. They do a series called The Canadian Superheroes, and asked Shannon's family if they could make her image into one of their superheroes. And her family and community said, "You're darn right she is." And so you can actually see Shannon depicted as a superhero, as part of the Canadian Superheroes. Because this is what a superhero looks like. Okay? So I believe that young people have an incredible ability to create change. And I'm so proud of the good work that you've been doing and the good work that you continue to do. I'm very grateful for the support of your family and the support of your schools. I can't wait to see everything that you're going to continue to accomplish. I say miigwech, and I wish all of you minno pamatswin to continue living in a good way. Thank you.
Merci, Kevin, for those beautiful and inspiring words that you shared with not only the youth attending today, but all of those in attendance while watching this broadcast. We will now turn our attention towards the youth who joined us today. In the next part of our program, we will hear directly from youth who participated in Imagine a Canada, who will share a little bit about their projects with you. In recognition of their efforts, each youth involved in the selected projects will be, for honoring today in today's celebration, will receive a certificate of appreciation. We will now ask each youth who participated in the kindergarten to grade 5 art streams to speak for 1 to 3 minutes, to introduce their submissions and to tell the audience what it is. Bring attention to any symbols or meanings found within your piece, and to share the message and vision of a reconciliation in Canada. After we have heard from our younger youth, we will invite the project leads from grade 6 to 12 and the CAGAP to stream and share a little bit about their projects, which received funding to take their visions to the next level and implement action within their schools or communities. I'd first like to welcome to the virtual stage Maximus Viscontas, a student from St. Puy Elementary in British Columbia, to speak on his essay, Imagine a Canada, Truth and Reconciliation. Maximus, the stage is yours.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Maximus. I'm a 5th grade student at St. Pius X in North Vancouver, British Columbia. I chose to write an essay for the Imagine a Canada project. I love history, which made a lot of this project more interesting for me. Maritime history specifically, but that's not really relevant to this. I'm proud to be autistic. I wrote an essay as I believe writing is one of my strengths. Although my writing skills have since significantly improved, I'm proud to be here and to have been selected. I think it's a big deal, and I'm proud of that. I split my essay into 3 sections: the past, the present, and the future. I include information about Canada's grim treatment of Indigenous people, as well as what we are now doing to reconcile. We can't change the past, but what we can do is work towards the future. I believe it's critical for Canadians to learn about our Indigenous culture. We don't want to repeat what happened in the past. We don't at all want more racism, which has no place in this country. All of Canadian land is unceded Indigenous territory. I'm currently attending this conference on traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Canada's multiculturalism is part of what makes it special. Indigenous culture is a huge part of Canada. At least it should be. In my essay, I mentioned the government is trying to achieve reconciliation. But is what is being done enough? Many issues are unsolved. I hope that more work is put into optimizing First Nations rights. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to attend.
Thank you so much, Maximus, for sharing with us all regarding your essay. I would now like to welcome Olivia Wall, a student from St. Puy Elementary in British Columbia, to speak to her song and drawing titled Hand in Hand. Olivia, the stage is now yours.
Hi, my name is Olivia Wall, and I am in grade 5, and I go to St. Pius X Elementary School. For my project, I wrote a song. It's about a girl, like me, who is walking to school on a fall September day, trying to be cool and feeling overruled. And when she gets to school, she learns for the first time about the history of residential schools in Canada and what truth and reconciliation means. And now, thanks to her education, she is standing on guard with the First Nations. She encourages all people to seek justice from those in power, together, hand in hand. Here's my song.
For those sharing the screen, I'm unsure if the audio is intended to be playing, but we cannot hear the song at this time.
On my way to school, following the rules, trying to be cool, feeling overruled. What I learned today, things have got to change. This is not the way. We've
we've got to be more brave. We stand on guard for those in pain. We need justice from those who were in rain. Let's build our home, a native land. Together we will walk hand in hand, hand in hand, hand in hand, hand in hand, hand in hand. All this learning can do just from my school. Let us not be fooled. Seek and find the truth. We stand on guard for those in pain. We need justice from those who were in rain. Let's build our home, a native land. Together we will walk hand in hand, 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 hand in hand. Together we will walk hand in hand.
Thank you, Olivia, for the beautiful song. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Katrina Projeski, a student from A. Blair McPherson School in Alberta, to speak on her drawing, We All Belong. Katrina, I may welcome you to the stage.
Hi, my name is Katrina. I'm in grade 3 in Edmonton, Alberta. My art is called We All Belong. It is a mixed media art piece, which means it has different art tools used in it. I use pencil, crayon, Sharpie, crayon, and paint. The Inukshuk represents the Inuit people, the eagle feather represents the Aboriginal people, the dot work around the turtle represents the Métis people, and the red on the head, tail, and fins represent the settler people because it looks like the Canada flag. The turtle represents Turtle Island, which is the land we live on in North America. The blue around the turtle is the water. I would like people to learn, no matter what culture you are or where you're from, we all belong on Turtle Island. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina, for sharing with us all what your art piece meant to you. It was very beautifully done. I would now like to welcome to the stage Lingham Ho, Daniel Wang, and Brooklyn Johnston, students from Earl Buxton School in Alberta, to speak on their poem and drawing, Having Fair Rights. And they may have some tech issues this morning, so I will give a call out to them if they're in attendance. If not, I can speak to their piece as well. So Lingham, Daniel, and Brooklyn, if you're in attendance. Okay, well, I would have loved if they would have been here to speak with us for you all today. However, I will share that their submission represents a reconciled Canada because we have shown that the fair rights are necessary for all people. The different colors, light and dark, that were used to represent the different groups of people in a reconciled Canada. The message that we want others to take away for all people in a reconciled Canada must have fair rights. Reconciliation means learning the history and the truth about the lives of Indigenous people, honoring the survivors and the elders and the people who died and are no longer with us, and changing the ways that we treat one another. I believe it is being brought up now for us all to see. Thank you for their submission. I'd like to next welcome to the stage Emilio Carreras, a student from David Livingstone Community School in Manitoba, to speak to her painting, Turtle in the Sea. I will speak to this piece as well for them. The honoree is a student that showed the turtle in the sea. Emilio could not be here with us today, so I'll share a little bit about her submission on her behalf. They wrote, "My reconciled Canada would look like peace and quiet, like a quiet place and turtles swimming in circles. It's neat and it's nice. The turtles were never mean, they're all calm at all times. Reconciliation means to be peaceful, like at home, outside, and at school." Thank you for the submission. I'd next like to welcome to the stage Jasmine Oman, a student from David Livingstone Community School in Manitoba, to speak with her painting, Peaceful Night.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm in grade 5 at David Livingstone School. This is my painting, the title Peaceful Night. I'm painting this picture to show a reconciled Canada. To me, it would look like a house on top of grass. There's a lake, trees, rocks on a clear night with a full moon and stars. To me, my painting looks like peace, and a reconciled Canada would look like peace. That's what I wanted people to see in my painting.
Thank you, Jasmine. I'd like to next welcome to the stage James Ting, a student from Osprey Woods Public School in Ontario, to speak to his photo, Path of Reconciliation. James, if you could just press the invite to speak button, we'll be able to bring, there we go, perfect.
To show reconciliation, I made a spiral path. So more people could understand what it meant, I wrote what reconciliation means to me in Ojibwe, French, English, and Chinese. I made my spiral path along the Credit River. The middle of my path represents the start, while the edges represent the future. What I learned, and what I hope others will learn, is that it's important to value Indigenous perspectives. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, James, so much. Je m'ai ensuite acculé à la scène Laurence Griffin-Carlin, élève de l'école MLT publique Charles Lemieux en Ontario, pour parler de la collection de jamais de sa classe, La nature, c'est la liberté. James?
Lawrence, you have the floor. Thank you very much. My name is Lawrence, and I'm in my first grade. So our class did this drawing. We want to know that the Indigenous, and we'd like to thank the Indigenous, and we'd like to thank them through this drawing, which includes a home which is on their land, and other people in our class drew some rainbows. So these are different symbols that are to demonstrate our gratitude and to thank the Indigenous. And we see with the flowers, with the Métis flowers, thanking the First Nations because we are on their lands and to recognize the suffering their children have inflicted when they were ripped away from their families and placed in the residential schools. The relationship the reconciliation for me means I am very sad about what took place because I know what took place. And it was not nice to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Lawrence, and thank you to your classmates as well.
Christian Bernabe, a student from École Saint-Joseph School in the Northwest Territories, to speak to his drawing titled Hope. Oh, I just see that they're having some tech issues. So when they are back in, I will call back to them. But I'd next like to move on to, give me one moment. Oh, we are moving on to the grade 6 to 12 stream. So we'll now turn our attention to the youth who led the project in the grade 6 to 12 and the CEGEP project streams. We have asked them to speak for a few moments to introduce their projects, share their perspectives of reconciliation, and what they have learned during this last year, and to share a little bit about the progress that has been made since the projects, in the progress that has been made for these projects since December of 2021. I'd first like to welcome to our virtual stage the students from the Westridge Elementary School in British Columbia, who received $750 grant to support the creation of their public art installation. good old internet in these days. We are having some tech issues with theirs, so I will read out what the project description was here. So these students were inspired to call by the call. Oh, I believe they may be here. Before I go further, I will give them the stage.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. No, absolutely not. Can you see the PowerPoint?
We sure can.
Okay, wonderful.
We would like to tell you a bit about a project that we, Division 2 of Westridge Elementary in Burnaby, BC, have been working on for most of the year.
In Division 2, we wanted to engage in the process of truth and reconciliation because we wanted to apologize for residential schools and other acts of racism against Indigenous people, past and present, in Canada. We wanted to acknowledge that Indigenous children were ripped from their families, forced to attend residential schools, and treated with unacceptable violence and torture in order to erase their Indigenous culture.
We also wanted to honor the survivors of residential schools and remember those who lost their life to them, and to do our part to be part of the solution moving forward.
It all started back in October as a continuation of the recognition of the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Our class started learning about the 94 calls to action from the 2015 Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. We were split into groups based on the calls to action that we thought were the most important moving forward.
Many of us were inspired of Call to Action 82, which is, we call upon provincial and territorial governments in collaboration with survivors and their organizations and other parties to the settlement agreement to commission and install a publicly accessible and highly visible residential schools monument in each capital city to honor all the children who were lost to their families and communities. We thought that even though Burnaby isn't the capital city of British Columbia, it should have a public art piece to show its engagement in the process of truth and reconciliation.
In December, we found out about the Imagine Canada program from the National Centre of Truth and Reconciliation. In February, we found out that one of our projects was one of the 15 chosen in Canada to receive a grant. In April, during the Imagine Canada weekend, we joined Zoom on Saturday and even came to school on Sunday. We learned a lot during those 2 days.
So what is our project? We had the idea of painting the crosswalk connecting two parts of the Drummond's Walk urban trail on Union Street. Westridge students sometimes refer to this area as the forest, as the crosswalk is at the end of it. We go by this area often on our food drives, Terry Fox runs, and outdoor learning times.
We thought that if we placed our project in this calm environment, it would help the members of a community pause in their walk to think about the meaning and symbolism of the crosswalk, appreciate the land they live on, and realize the role they can play in the truth and reconciliation journey.
About two months ago, we met up with local Coast Salish artists Nicole Prezel and Athena Picha to brainstorm some ideas and designs for the crosswalk.
We also surveyed pedestrians who walk on the Drummond's Walk urban trail to get a better sense of the community's understanding of residential schools and truth and reconciliation. On May 20th, we received 2 design ideas from Athena and voted for our favorite, and on May 30th, our project was approved by the Burnaby City Council. So in the next few days, city crews will be removing the zebra lines that make the current crosswalk, and will be painting this design with white reflective paint. We will also have an opening ceremony at school with elders and members of the city and school board to officially present the crosswalks.
We are really proud to see how our idea has evolved into a real project. And without the grant, we do not think we would have gone this far.
So we want to thank Imagine a Canada for supporting our initiative since the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you to the students of Westridge Elementary. Yes, thank you to the students of Westridge Elementary. I'd now like to welcome to the stage the students from Rosser Elementary School in British Columbia who received a $1,000 grant to support their educational assemblies for elementary and middle school students. Please welcome them to the stage.
Rosser Elementary School received a generous grant from the Imagine Canada project of the NCTR. Our Imagine a Canada grant project is complete. After lots of after-school work, we are ready to go on Friday, May 27, 2022. We hosted an intermediate student assembly and a primary student assembly with our special guest, Elder Dr. Roberta Price. Elder Roberta has worked with Burnaby School District for decades and has spent significant time working with health authorities across the Lower Mainland as well. Elder Roberta shared 2 assemblies with Rosser community to honor Indian residential school survivors. She is full of strength and warmth. For intermediate students, Elder Roberta shared her personal story about the impact of residential schools on her family. For primary students, Elder Roberta shared her story about family and resilience. Both assemblies ended with a song in community. Students then reflected on the assembly with what reconciliation means to them. The feathers were compiled into a display of a raven, which is also our letters to Elder Roberta to share their meaning, their learning and gratitude. Staff and students alike were significantly impacted by having Elder Roberta share time and her story with us.
We think that this event has been a valuable lesson for our school. We have been fortunate enough to invite Elder Roberta back to meet with student leaders, and it seems like this is just the start of a relationship between Elder Roberta and the school community. Her sharing showed the school how important it is to make time for survivor voices. It also showed us the importance of relationships because we did a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure Elder Roberta was taken care of. We also worked with some of the district staff and community members to make sure we were doing this event the right way. We think it is a good thing that every student in our school has heard from Elder Roberta, and we hope that this will stick with them and encourage them to take part in truth and reconciliation activities in the future. This was an event we won't forget.
Thank you so much to Aubrey, Tia, and August of Rosser Elementary School. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from Bedford Road Collegiate in Saskatchewan who received a $750 grant to support a cultural workshops in their schools, such as moccasin making. Please welcome them to the stage. I see you on the stage here next to me, but if you, oh, perfect, there we go.
Hello. The Indigenous Student Council at Bedford Road Collegiate in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan received a grant in the amount of $750 in March 2022. When we applied for the grant, it was with the intent of using the money to further our student council goals for the school year of reclaiming of language and culture. Obviously, this is going to be a lifelong process and not something that can be reached within the span of one school year. But we have made the progress in this throughout the support of the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation Image of Canada grant. Our goal for the money was to hold a moccasin making workshop for students at our school. Students involved received the supplies to create their own pair, and we've been working towards completion of the school since. And throughout the school year, we have done many things to push forward reconciliation, such as the powwow, the Winter Festival, and any event involving Indigenous people and more. Seeing people wanting to learn our culture and even our people learning about our culture gets me inspired to learn more, to teach more about my skills and my teachings. It builds up a community and builds us together as people, all filled with flaws and success. And at the end of the day, we're all just people, not better than anyone and not less than anyone. We're all just trying to get past the day. So when we learn about each other and building community, we are building community, trust, and many more things. We can learn from the past and move towards a better future together. And it all starts with the schools. Everything that our Indigenous Council did in the school is taking a step forward, and I hope it continues that way.
December 2021, the Indigenous Student Council has been working very hard on this project so that we can be connected to our culture and to learn new things. While doing this project, we have not only have been working hard, but enjoying it while most of us never had the chance to learn about it and know how to make moccasins. We have learned how to bead, how to sew, and the importance of the hide that we use. It has made us feel closer to our culture, and we've had a few students on their way to completing their moccasins, and we couldn't be more excited about it. I do hope in the future that we can continue working on this project because we are not only like what we're doing, but we do love doing it. And so me and the Indigenous Student Council are so grateful for everything that has been going around in our school so that we can do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angel and Chloe. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from Forest Lawn High School in Alberta who received a $1,000 grant to support the art installation and medicine garden at their school. I'm not sure if they're on with us here today, so I'm going to give them a moment if they are. I would like to present to you all what the Forest Lawn High School in Alberta used with their project. So the $1,000 grant was to support an art installation and medicine garden for their school. Students from Forest Lawn could not be here today with us, so I will share a little bit. The project leads were wanting to make a space that students could use to connect to the land and to each other. In addition to the garden, Indigenous elders will be invited to teach about the traditional plants, their uses, and how to care for them. Signs and information about the plants will be made so the future caretakers of the garden can continue the work that has been begun. Lastly, an Indigenous welder and artist, Flora Johnson, is set to work with the welding students to design and create a metal sculpture that will be the garden's centerpiece. The project relates to reconciliation by building stronger relationships between Indigenous community members, the Indigenous students, and the wider student population at Forest Lawn High School and Jack James. Reconciliation is an ongoing process, an action and building relationships. This garden will represent the ongoing changing, living, and nature of reconciliation and living together in a good way. Thank you to the students from Forest Lawn High School. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from the Trinity Collegiate Institute in Manitoba, who received a $750 grant to support a traditional medicine garden within their community and school. They may also be having some technical difficulties here at this time. So I'll read their plan of action as well. So the plan is to build a medicine garden in the school's courtyard. Benches and planters will be used to put together to creating a circle with 4 entrance points. Each planter will have its own type of medicine within, such as sage, sweetgrass, cedar, or tobacco. On the outside of each piece will be a painting of a representative of the 7 grandfather teachings in the word Cree, Ojibwe, Dene, and English. Reconciliation is a process in which Indigenous knowledge and methods of passing on knowledge must be acknowledged, valued, and implemented as a regular part of Canadian history, science, arts, and etc. This will require an unlearning and relearning of the traditional white settler history, as well as a totally different approach to the educational system. This will not be a quick process, and it will eventually be accepted as normal when a generation of students has been through the system. So thank you to Kayla, Nissim, and Nicole for their project idea and for the school's implementation. Just give us one moment. Alrighty. I would now like to welcome to the stage the École Van Wellingham School in Manitoba, who received a $1,000 grant to support their Métis beading project.
Tanchi, hello, and bonjour. We are École Van Wellingham School, and first of all, we would like to acknowledge that our school is located on Treaty 1 land. We are a dual-track school in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and today we would like to present our Imagine a Canada Reconciled Métis Beading project with you. Next slide, please. Our project. Our reconciliation project was to implement teachings and then Métis beading with all 27 classes in our school. We wanted all students and staff to be involved in this project to create a true sense of community. We also wanted each student to go home with an artifact, something they had beaded to show their family and share stories of what they had learned. This idea began because 2 students in our group recently discovered they are Métis, and we wanted to support them by learning more about their heritage and by celebrating their culture. Next slide, please.
Before starting the beading project, Madame Beauregard did lessons with all 27 classes on the history of the Métis Nation in Canada. This included how the Métis Nation was founded, the impact of Treaty 1, the Battle of Batoche, the 7 generations of Métis people in Canada, and the celebration of the Métis culture at Batoche Days. She also taught each class about the history behind the beading. Next slide, please.
Madame Lavallee. Nicole Lavallee, an ISS Indigenous Student Success Teacher in our Pembina Trail School Division, came and shared her knowledge and stories of being Métis.
Madame Lavallee also mentored our group in traditional Métis beading and spent an afternoon guiding us as we worked on our own personal beading project.
Next slide, please.
Hands-on involvement. It was important to us to be directly involved in this project. We sat with every class and helped each student to bead. As we helped, we spoke to the students about the Métis culture and the importance of beading, so they had an opportunity to listen to a different perspective from their peers.
Kindergarten. Kindergarten students created simple pattern bracelets with colors from the medicine wheel. Each student also made a bracelet for a classmate. They were taught the Métis way of beading, to have good thoughts and to think of the person they were beading for the whole time they were beading. The same teaching was shared with all 27 classes. Next slide, please.
Grades 1 to 6. Grades 1 to 6 students plotted out their being design onto a 100 chart. The design needed to be inspired by nature. The Métis are known as the flower beadwork people, or include an indigenous or love symbol. The beads were then strung onto 10 small pins and attached together with one bigger pin. Finally, the beading project was tacked onto felt. Next slide, please. Success for all. Some students followed templates we created, but most came up with their own designs. Pictured here is a student in grade 1 on their first day of school after arriving from the Ukraine. Every student was successful and included in this project. Next slide, please. Grades 7 and 8. Our group met 1 to 2 times a week over the lunch hour to work on our personal beading projects. It took months of trial and error to produce these examples shown, even though these are still works in progress. However, this experience gave us the ability to support and guide our peers who expressed interest in traditional Métis beading with a needle and thread.
Timeline. In March, fine-tuned the beading plan, how it would look at every grade level so every student had success. Madame Borger was taught to Métis bead by Nicole Lavalle. We were interviewed by the Pembina Trail School Division Media Liaison. In April, all students in kindergarten participated in the beading project. We were interviewed by the community affiliation of the Winnipeg Free Press. In May, all students grade 1 to 4 participated in the beading project. Madame Lavalle came and beaded with all of us. We were interviewed by CTV News Winnipeg. In June, all students 5 to 8 will participate in the beading project. Next slide, please.
Budget $420. Beads, beading mats, stiff felt, needles, and thread. All bought at Poco Beads to support local and indigenous. $430 small and large pins. $100 on various items like tobacco, containers for beads, envelopes full of projects, larger beads for kindergarten students, and paper cleaners for their bracelets.
Reflection. We developed a deep appreciation for traditional Métis beading because we realized how difficult it is. We cannot imagine how hard it would be to bead by candlelight and to not have modern supplies. An example is using porcupine quills.
This project created a lot of interest at the school and community level. We were grateful to create conversations beyond the classroom.
This project allowed the students to see the Métis Nation in the present and not simply in the past. It also allowed for an authentic and positive connection to the Métis culture through the hands-on experience of beading.
This project encompassed inclusion and allowed for every single student to participate through differentiation, 3 different levels of beading. It also inspired multicultural conversation, where students and staff proudly shared traditional beading from their cultures.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for the students of Ecole Van Wellingham. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from St. Benedict Catholic Secondary School in Ontario, who received a $750 grant to support an art installation at their school.
What is the project? We are making a TP to show reconciliation with the First Nations. This TP is showing the handprints with children, representing the children that once were introduced into the, what were the schools called? Residential schools, yeah. How did it start? Mr. Timpano presented the project as a suggestion to the grade 9 students in the beginning of the year. I started because I really liked the idea of making a big project that would represent a reconciliation between the First Nations and the people that moved here eventually. Who's involved? It's me, Aura, and my friend Emma, but it was me in the beginning and Emma joined eventually. Where's this happening? We are in St. Benedict in the greater city of Sudbury. What do you want others to learn from the project? I would like others to learn more about the history of the First Nations people and what they've gone through because it was really horrible, to be honest. What have you learned doing the project? I have learned so much about how horrible people treated First Nations and still sometimes treats them. With the help of Miss Eloisa, I have learned about how they used to live and how they used to be treated. For some of the progress since you started the project, how are things going? I think we are pretty much done. We just need the handprints of the children. With the handprints, we're gonna represent most of the children that were bring to residential schools. So that's a big thing. We have finished the base of the TP and we are ready to start with the rest. That's it.
Thank you to Aura and Emma. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from Danforth Collegiate and Technical Institute in Ontario, who received a $1,000 grant to support an art installation at their school.
Thank you very much. Hi, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I just can't see you on the screen just yet.
If that's okay, we'll keep our camera off and just do the microphone with the presentation slides.
So
Okay,
the plan is, oh, yeah, thank you. Hello, we're Ashki Ashkabeus, and this is the presentation about our mural. Next slide. So Ashki Ashkabeus is the Anishinaabe word meaning young messengers. The group meets every other Wednesday in B7. We're very inclusive about Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, and our goal is to talk about Indigenous-related issues and reclaim our traditional knowledge and share with others. Next slide. So I'm sure you know about the grant. It's from the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation. We got $1,000 for it, and it's in the Indigenous youth and its opportunity to lead an educational event or project. The project that we picked was to create a mural that represents reconciliation, and we're planning to do a mural at our school. Next slide. So we're collaborating with a local Indigenous artist and as well as the Danforth Arts Council. We're planning to teach about Indigenous teachings of, we're planning to teach Indigenous teachings so then those involved can understand and we could really take into consideration reconciliation. And we have to be mindful of cultural appropriation, make sure that doesn't happen. Next slide. So this is the room beside B7, and it's quite an empty wall, and we're planning to do the mural here. Next slide. And we had, when we were beginning the brainstorming process, we asked the group of what reconciliation meant for them. And next slide. And the ideas that were posted is by this Jamboard here, and next slide. And by this paper here. So we did both paper and online, just opinions of what reconciliation meant. And we would take this into consideration of how the mural design would be considered and just how the design would overall go. Next slide. So the update right now is we just found a Indigenous artist that's willing to put this mural together. The design has to still be determined, and we might take this project into the next school year, but right now it is quite on its way. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the students from Danforth School. I'm going to invite back to the stage Sebastian Barnaby, a student from École Saint-Joseph in Northwest Territories, to speak to his drawing titled Hope.
Hello, my name is Sebastian, and I'm from a St. Joseph School, and I'm in grade 2, and I'm going to play Wolverine. And I'm going to tell you about my festival. The background is for Mother Nature, and there's a feather next to her on the right, and on top of her there's a tent, and beside her there's the two flags, Canada and the Northwest Territories. The right shoulder who died, and the Northwest Territory rock portion, and the mittens on the left shoulder, and the dream catcher, and the one. This is a woman who went to residential school, and the red hand stands for murder, the people who got murdered, and the nose is a waterfall, and the cloud is when the waterfall falls, it creates clouds, and there's a raven for the nose too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. I'd next like to welcome to the stage Elizabeth, a student also from École Saint-Joseph School in the Northwest Territories, to speak on her drawing titled Forgiveness.
My name is Elizabeth, and I go to kindergarten, and I was always happy with my mom, and I was little, and one was school limited. Then I saw heart. Then I remember that I loved everyone. Then the clouds will remember every the stuff that happened for a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Next, we have les élèves de l'école secondaire Augustin Norbert-Morin.
So now the secondary school Augustin Norbert Morin in Quebec, who had a $750 grant for an exchange project and an art exposition and community pictures. I just want to say that I did speak French in the past for a number of years.
To speak for them today, please bear with me. As I mentioned, the next honorees are from l'École secondaire Augustin Norbert-Morin à Quebec, and they received a $1,000 grant to support the art and photography exchange with community. Students could not be here with us today, but this is the description of their project.
We want to establish an intercultural dialogue through the exposition of our tools, artistic tools, that will give opportunities to our young student to learn more about cultural identity. The invited groups will also be ambassadors and explain what they have learned and share about their experience. Reconciliation is the first point in the Commission for Truth and Reconciliation. ideal world, we should be gathering with other people and establish a dialogue. But with the pandemic, we created an intercultural dialogue online. And so we were happy to learn more about the history of residential schools. And so our project is a symbol of reconciliation.
Found that great. But I would like once again to thank the students from École Secondaire Augustin Norbert Marine. I next would like to welcome to the stage students from Berlin Academy in Quebec, who received a $1,000 grant to support their participation project 215 plus, a moccasin making project recognizing the unmarked burial sites. Please help me with welcoming them to the stage.
Oh no.
I gotta raise my central voice.
You guys are on. In October, Jessica Hernandez came to our school and presented her Project 215. She started this project after the unmarked graves of 215 children were found in BC in May of 2021. She encouraged her community and Indigenous communities across North America to heal through making moccasins to represent each soul that never made it home. During her presentation, she told us that she hadn't yet reached the goal of 215 moccasins. Hearing this, we wanted to help her with her project the best we could. We gathered a group of students who wanted to participate.
We were lucky enough to get the opportunity to work with Rebecca Elkerton, who taught us how to make traditional Anishinaabe moccasins from the Chippewa Nation. All our materials were purchased from tribal spirit music and Indigenous-owned business. We worked for weeks on our moccasins, and they are currently on display in the hallway leading to the mural. We will keep them on display at Burling for a period of time to bring awareness to the children who never made it home. We will then donate our moccasins to Jessica Hernandez Project 215 plus.
To us, reconciliation means the healing of a broken relationship. In order to do this, we need to ensure students are taught the true history of Canada. Our history books vaguely touch upon the depths of this tragedy and others like it.
Our project has helped serve as a grim reminder of the children that never made it home. Additionally, we have learned that everyone must take part in doing something for reconciliation, for something to happen. Thank you to the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation for helping to support Berlin Academy's Moccasin Project.
Thank you to Kaylee and Kishanti and I hope I said that right. I'd like to next welcome to the stage a student from CDC La Chute in Quebec who received a $750 grant to support an art installation at their school.
Hello, everyone. I know we're expecting to see Jade, my student, but I'm honored and humbled to speak for her today. My name is Charlene, and I'm a teacher at an adult ed center in a little town in Western Quebec, CDC La Chute. And our school has both Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. And I'm just wondering if we're able to pull up Jade's, the draft of her painting before I speak about it. If not, that's fine. I have a picture of it. Maybe that's going to work. See if you can see this. It's just a lovely drawing, her draft before she does the painting, of the souls of the the children who were from the graves, the residential schools that were found, the unmarked graves, as they're approaching, oh, sorry, I don't know if you had a good look at that, approaching the Sky Woman. So it's just a lovely, that's her rendition of our hope for truth and reconciliation. So what I'll do now is I'll just read a little bit about our project. Well, before I do that, can I just say how happy I am to be listening and part of this this national celebration. My heart is full as I hear these young people speak about the hope for the future. Seriously. As an intergenerational survivor, our student Jade proposed a permanent art installation for our school. And as I mentioned earlier, it will depict how the souls of the children from the unmarked graves will be accepted into the arms of the Sky Woman for their final resting place of peace. Our student from the Ojibwe Nation had this idea to use the vision to help bring attention and healing regarding the tragedy of residential schools in Canada. Starting in September 2021, we listened as Jade brainstormed ideas about her project to us. We learned much about the First Nations ways of life. We researched ways we could be involved in truth and reconciliation. We looked at procuring more First Nations literature and art. In October, we contacted an elder, Gabriel Whitefeather, to come to our school to speak with us. In November and December, they were the months that ideas got transposed onto paper in preparation for the painting. It's saying my internet is unstable. I hope you can hear me. So November and December, yes, that's when Jade actually finished her draft that I showed earlier. Then, that was November and December. In February, we discovered we were awarded the micro grant to help finance buying the supplies for the permanent art installation. After that, Jade and I were invited to speak at our school board's Council of Commissioners to explain the project and talk about the grant we received. The commissioners were very impressed with Jade's idea of her art installation and intend to visit our school to see the finished product. We received the check from the Imagine Canada project in March. We ordered all the supplies. We received everything. The grant was for $750, and some delivery of some of the art supplies were delayed, but now we have everything. Jade had to leave school in April, unfortunately. Suddenly, she was called away to go to Kujiwak and informed us she would not be back until July. So we're very disheartened about that, but we would understand completely. She had to go. Our school is closed in July and does not open up again until September. So Jade will be attending a school up north where she'll be learning more about her First Nations culture. Originally, she was supposed to leave a bit later, so at least she could have started the project we were hopeful for, but that just didn't happen. So when the school opens up again in September 2022, Jade expects to have the project completed by the end of September 2022. Yeah, okay. I think that's it. I would like to thank Imagine Canada very, very much for the opportunity to share our students' wonderful project that's hopefully to help promote truth and reconciliation. I'm very sorry I have another Zoom I have to rush off to, but thank you again so much.
Thank you, Charlene, for sharing Jade's artwork and her piece. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from Mount Stewart Consolidated School on Prince Edward Island, who received a $1,000 grant to support an art installation and Micmac quill work lessons within their school. Please welcome them to the stage. The person who is in charge of the Mount Stewart School, can you just unmute the audio, please? There we go. Now we can hear you.
We're just getting our PowerPoint up here.
Perfect.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Emery, and I am here with my classmate and friend Clara, and our art teacher Heather. We go to Mount Stewart Consolidated School in PEI. I am Mi'kmaq, and I live on Scotch Fort Reserve, which is part of the Abequit First Nation. Thank you for choosing our project. We are so excited to have created a mural which means so much to our school and our Mi'kmaq community. My friend and neighbor Melissa Peter Paul is an amazing quill artist. She has been making quill art since 2014, and her great-great-grandmother was a quiller. She is also a mom. Her son attended our school, and another one will start next year. We asked Melissa to come to our school and teach us about quill art and how important it is to her to learn this tradition of art. If people like Melissa do not learn quill art, the art form will disappear. In PEI, it is hard to be a quill artist because we do not have any porcupines here. Melissa has people to bring her porcupines from the mainland. She blesses the porcupine before she harvests any of the needles. Then she has to treat them before she can even start making the quill art. She organizes them all by size, small to large. She dyes them in different colors and starts to organize them again. She quills them into she quills them into birch bark that she also has to harvest.
This is the design Melissa made for our school, which we named Advocate Kipu, Masterwood Eagles. You can see our school colors of blue and yellow, and the orange looks like the orange t-shirts, which all students and staff wear on Orange Shirt Day as we remember and continue to learn about residential schools across Canada. After Melissa taught the students about quill work, we then divided her art into 64 squares, and each student had one square. Students had to transfer their square on the canvas and then paint it. We had a lot of fun and a bit of mess while we did this. This is what it looked like before we made the mural. It was a huge puzzle, but we figured it all out. This is our finished mural. This was on display at the PEI Art Gallery. We will probably be displaying this mural in our school lobby with the original quill artwork beside it. As anyone comes into our school, they will see that we embrace our Mi'kmaq community, and they can all learn about quill work and see Melissa's quill work too. I think her son will be excited when he starts kindergarten to see his mom's artwork on the wall. Our school teaches us about truth and reconciliation from the time we are in kindergarten. We have events with our local chief, dancers and regalia that come and share their stories and dance and music. Often the dancers are students from our school. And now we have this huge mural to share our love of Mi'kmaq artwork for years to come.
Okay. Imagine a Canada where all schools celebrate Indigenous art in their schools to welcome everyone to learn together about truth and reconciliation.
Thank you so much. I'd next like to welcome to the stage students from Horse Lake Elementary School in British Columbia, who received a $1,500 grant to support an Indigenous garden with local plants.
This is day one of our Indigenous plant garden at Horse Lake Elementary. We're going to talk to a couple of students who are going to tell us what we're up to today. So this is Dom and Adriana. Hi guys, what's happening here?
So we're pulling out roots and plants to plant new ones to make it look nicer.
Okay, how about you, Adriana? What else are we gonna do?
The path is gonna be a full entrance inside. And it's gonna go through here, and there's gonna be a reflection rock back there where you sit on, and then it goes back over there. And then we're gonna put plants and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and of course, how are we going to be guided by this? What's happening next week to help us develop the garden? Do you remember who's coming to visit?
The elders.
Yeah, so we're going to have some elders come to visit next week and to help us identify some plants around the schoolyard. We'll just pan out and kind of show our schoolyard. So we're pretty lucky. We have a forest behind our school, So we're going to be going out into the forest and in walks around the school to find various plants. We have a list of about 20, right? So the elders are going to be coming next week to tell us about the plants. Are there any plants that you're looking forward to learning about, or are there any plants that you wonder about?
Well, not particularly, but when we go camping, I like to know what plants are which, and I can eat some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, Adriana and Dom, and we'll get back to work.
Thank you to the students from Horse Lake Elementary. I'd next like to welcome to the stage a student from Victoria School of Arts in Alberta. They received a $1,500 grant to support a community fridge to address food insecurity within their community. Please help me by welcoming Stevie to the stage.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Danse Steven Sigason Osinia Duncan's First Nation. I'm currently on Amiskwacy, Wasahigan, otherwise known as Edmonton in Alberta. My project for Imagine a Canada was a community fridge. This was created to ensure that the community around Victoria School of the Arts, as well as the school itself, has opportunities for food sovereignty and taking back our original methods of food sovereignty within Indigenous culture. The community fridge, I consulted a Niheowen teacher who knows the Niheowen language better than I do, and we decided to name it the Mamawigowen fridge, which refers to communal living in Niheowen. The community fridge contributes to reconciliation in the sense that it is taking back our original food system and the way we cooperate within a community. My vision of a reconciled Canada would mean all Indigenous people getting our land back, dismantling capitalism that profits over the destruction of Mother Earth, and a widespread movement of decolonization. However, those are very, very big global worldwide issues that a simple person cannot just contribute to.
Nicole, we told Traveler, contact 2000, please. Nicole, we told Traveler, contact 2000. Thank you.
I apologize for that. But as I was saying, and a simple individual cannot just contribute to such a big thing. But what we can do is build communities that are based on autonomy and based on these communal lifestyles that we have had pre-colonization. And that's what the Mamawigowen Fridge wishes to do, to make a world in which the community surrounding Victoria School of the Arts and the students can create solidarity with Indigenous people in order to bring back our original way of living as like a very small step to learning about these issues. And I also have I have a slide that shows the design of the fridge. As currently, I am painting it at the, I'm currently in the process of painting it. It's not finished. I've currently done the first coat. Okay. So if you can see it.
It hasn't come up on my end yet, Stevie, but it may just take a moment.
Okay.
There we go. Beautiful.
Okay, so this is the art I created for the fridge that I am currently working to do. I included a quote by Frantz Fanon, who is a philosopher that talks about movements of decolonization and such. A lot of the symbolism I used was from historical Indigenous movements around Turtle Island. However, have also occurred in other places across the world that include Indigenous people. And yeah, I think that's basically it.
Amazing, Stevie. Thank you so much for sharing your project with us all. I'd next like to welcome to the stage a student from Limestone District School Board in Ontario who received a $1,500 grant to support a community garden with traditional Indigenous herbs and vegetables. Please help me by welcoming Bree to the stage.
Nyawa Sego Gwego, Brianna Yanyas, Roide Wax Nazare, Gahaga Niwakwin Joda, Napani Niduengano. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Brianna Roy. I am Mohawk First Nations from Napani, but traditionally are from Tyendinaga, which is about 5 minutes away. My vision was to take this garden that we have in NDSS, my high school, that has kind of been left for a few years. And I saw a potential in this space to create it to be some type of environment for students and classes to use, but also to be in an Indigenous atmosphere with our Indigenous plants and seeds from Tyendinaga and have some type of learning opportunity there. As a part of reconciliation, it's very much about truth, but it's also about growing and learning together. So as an Indigenous student, I wanted to engage Indigenous and non-Indigenous students and classes as well in the creation of this garden. So I've had many volunteers, non-Indigenous and Indigenous students, come help me de-weed the garden and plant. I've had the woodworking classes build picnic tables, and I'm having art students paint nature-themed illustrations on the top of it. So that's very exciting, especially with nature. Everyone can connect to it. It's all something that we share. It's not just something Indigenous people know or something that non-Indigenous people know. Everyone uses it. Everyone's connected to it. The picnic tables are going to be put in a circle in the garden. This will represent the connectiveness not only to each other and the school, but also to the land. It's also an Indigenous way when we're in meetings, as most of you guys will probably know. And every Wednesday, we are having knowledge keepers and elders come to the garden to guide us in our planting and to also teach us about just ways of life and really help with our two-wide seeing skills. Progress so far, we have all the picnic tables made. I'm just waiting for the paint so the students can paint. We have had the knowledge keepers come in. They've drummed in there with a few music classes, and they were just out there yesterday with an English class talking about they were planting several, I can't remember what they were planting, but there was a big lesson behind that, and the students were all engaged. I went and took a peek out there, and they were all just having a lot of fun, so that was really exciting to see. We're hoping to have everything planted by the end of the school year, and we've planted pretty hardy plants so that they can survive somewhat by themselves in the summertime. And I won't be here next year as I'm a grade 12 student, but we do have the next Indigenous representative for NDSS. She'll be taking over and making sure that everything goes smoothly as the years come, and I kind of hope it's going to be a lasting thing that can provide knowledge and food and just a sense of reconciliation at NDSS. So yeah, that's all. So Nyawa, Chimigwech for having me. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bree. And once again, thank you to all of our youth who were able to share just a small piece of their large project and work that they've put in on to advance the reconciliation within schools and in their communities. It is the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation's hope that everyone who attended this celebration today will reflect on the work and the words shared by these youth and be inspired by our future leaders who are on a journey of learning, growing, and advancing reconciliation. We look to our leaders of today in our schools, community, and institutions, and ask that you continue to work with our youth and their reconciliation initiatives. As Stephanie Scott shared with us, art is the start of the program. We all have a part to play in advancing reconciliation in Canada. We must take upon ourselves and listen to the residential school survivors, the elders, and our knowledge keepers. Learn more about Indigenous culture and history, and reflect on how you can make our country a better place, just as these amazing youth have done here today. It has been an inspiring few hours spent in the company of these youth leaders. However, we've now come to the end of the Imagine a Canada National Celebration, and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation hopes you have enjoyed this program just as the team has. I'd once again, like to invite Elder Edna to close our event with a prayer and add some comments for today.
Hello, everyone, once again. Sounds like some amazing, fantastic work going on, being carried out by the youth of Turtle Island. It's very inspiring. Our future gives me confidence. The future's in good hands. Before I say closing prayer, I'd like to add some of my own comments, a little bit of my own experience in residential school. I was as a young 7-year-old when I was taken away to residential school. I was an innocent child living and learning in a loving family of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and my parents, where I was everyone's child. I was taken to a strange place filled with strangers and strange foods, strange customs. A place where love, the hugs, the kisses, the goodnight kisses, and the love ended and disappeared. Can you imagine a year without the love, hugs, and kisses of you from your loved ones? That's what we endured. That was the most difficult change every child experienced in residential school. But before being sent off to residential school, living out on the land, my grandparents' traditional homeland, the environment, avati, is our Inuit word for environment, avati. The land, the air, the sea, the weather was my school, and later in my adult years, my university. There's so much that can be learned from the environment. It inspired me, it spoke to me, it cautioned me, it cleansed me, it caressed me, it nourished me, it healed me, and it directed me to name some of the benefits of my environmental university. I encourage all the youth and everyone on Turtle Island in this country of ours, Canada, to be inspired by what's around you, by what's happening. Interpret the events and scenes as they unfold before you in your own ways. May the words flow. If you're a poet or story writer, may the words flow as the rivers flow in your stories and songs. May the imagery flow as free as the birds in your dances and in your art. I wish you all the very best. Keep true to yourselves. Keep reconciliation happening in your own way. Continue telling the world how reconciliation can happen. Be an influence. Be an influencer and model it. We, the remaining survivors and elders, need your help to create awareness and understanding. And through these masterpieces of art that you just presented, is the first step. It's a great step. Help us create an awareness and understanding of the greater world, of this shameful legacy, Canada's shameful legacy. And I trust that you can ensure that history is never repeated. I wish you all the very best in whatever you do. Now I will say the closing prayer. Kangakungamana inulgamid hivunik kamingnik tautuyak tamingnik tuhaktit titidlutik unipkaktidlutik nungotakakhutik minguhutik lunin tautuk timata unipkariblugen nayok paglugen ihumanuangit turokpaliayut ihuaktumin inang ningok nang inunguinakut pivangnyakon ayok taulutik uvaptingnin inang ni angayok kanguyugut ananat tianguyugun koya huktugut inuhat hivunikaptingnik tautung matalo tautu yakamiglo inmiktik hivunikkamingnik taima tautu yaktamingnik takuyumablutik ta kakugo inang ningokumin akagulunin taima akuing matattao ihumagikutik nipitik atong niagai ayungin nitik atong niagai koya huktugut inuhavut koya giblugidlo koya nakor kona masi. Thank you. I prayed that all these youth will continue to be guided, protected, and inspired, and that they continue on this path that they've started with the guidance of parents and grandparents and everyone else around them. And I express gratitude for the work that they've already started, and they're in forging their own paths, that the spirits and the environment will also be their guides. Thank you. Kwenami, Ilanilo.
Thank you so much for those closing words and that beautiful prayer, Elder Edna. On behalf of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, I would once again like to thank all of our youths, the educators, mentors, parents, guardians, friends, survivors, elders, chiefs, our MPs, MLAs, community members, and all other representatives for joining us today to support these amazing youth leaders and to pay recognition to their visions for a better tomorrow. Thank you also to our audience who joined our live broadcast, and remember to share these YouTube links. The entire program will be made available online after the conclusion of our program today. Watch for news about the launch of the 2022-2023 Imagine a Canada program in September for this year, as well as information about the Truth and Reconciliation Week and the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation's programmings. Once again, thank you, merci, marci, chimigwech, et natrumik.